And welcome to Impact 2025, our continuing conversation where we talk about all different type of topics, race, religion, current events, everything that you can think of. This is that opportunity for you to participate in the conversation and have open conversation. You do that by typing your comments and your questions into the chat section or the comment section, whether it be Facebook, whether it be YouTube that you're watching on. So thank you for joining us. And again, feel free to type in your comments and your questions into the comment and question section. So what we're going to do now is go through a couple of reminders of the other offerings that we have here. On Thursdays, we have Thursday Thirst. That's our weekly Bible study. It's a time where we can get together and really dive deep into the Word. On Sundays at 10 o'clock, we have our worship service. That's Facebook, YouTube, and live. So look at the address on the screen. I'm going to circle back the Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Facebook and YouTube. So to let you know about that. So on Thursday. And then on Tuesdays today at 7 o'clock, we have a time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. So if you're praying with people in the ministry. You don't have to pray the whole time, but sometime between 7 and 7:45, if you're praying with us. And of course, at 8 o'clock, we have Impact 2025, where we are here today. And so just, there's been a lot of stuff going on. As you know, a lot of tragedies that's been going on out here in the world today. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about one of those specific ones. The ones we're not going to talk about, I'll just highlight real quick. One of the ones was there was a shooting at Brown University. Not going to talk about that. Rob Reiner, a famous director, comedian, philanthropist, political activist. He was killed. Him and his wife was killed in their home, and then there's been a lot of commentary around that. That's a big deal. Not going to talk about that. There's been a couple of other shootings here in the United States, but what we're going to talk about is there was a mass shooting in Australia, and they don't have a lot of mass shootings down there. And one of the reasons is because what Australia did was they enacted gun laws that restricted high capacity rifles and things like that, so they wouldn't be able to have mass shootings. So that when they do have violent situations, you can't really go crazy as far as being able to take out a lot of people because you have a high capacity weapon, because you can just shoot off a bunch of bullets in a short amount of time. And so they put in a lot of laws and a lot of restrictions in order to stop that. And so for them to have a mass shooting where 15 people lost their lives and many others are in the hospital or wounded. And so what happened in this one is they had a father and son who I guess got radicalized, as they say, and went to this place, Bondi Beach, one of their most popular beaches, and started shooting. Many people came at the shooters. There was a couple, husband and wife couple, in their 60s, who went and attacked the attackers and tried to wrestle their weapons away from them, and they lost their lives doing that, trying to save others. They tell stories of other people who try to distract the shooter so that other people can get away, and they lost their lives. And there was one gentleman who ran out there and was able to disarm one of the shooters and wrestle him down. And that's because he had, previous military training, and he was able to do that. But he thought he was going to lose his life. He was wounded, shot in the shoulder. And so why is this relevant? Why are we talking about it? This happened in Australia, it didn't happen here. Two reasons. First one, their approach. Our approach here in the United States is, as often is said, well, we're gonna put up prayers and that's about it. No action, no change. We just say, hey, it's a shame, and we move on. In Australia, what they've decided to do, and what the leaders, the politicians, the legislators have said was, we're going to make whatever laws and do whatever we have to do and make whatever changes we need to make in order to lessen the likelihood that this will happen again. And so immediately they go to their gun laws. One of the things that they propose now, they already have some of the highest restrictions in the world, but then they came back and they said, well, because it was a father-son duo, and the son wasn't eligible to get a gun, but the father was. And so the father was able to get guns and give them to the son, and both of them were able to go out and do this particular type of crime, mass shooting, whatever you want to call it. And they were thinking about, all right, well, we may need to restrict the amount of guns that you can have. You only can shoot one. So if you got a bunch of guns, what are you doing? Are you going out here trying to distribute guns to a bunch of other people who aren't supposed to have them? And so that's what was one of the ideas. And they're looking to go ahead and put that into effect. Here in the United States, we would never even think about that. Not going to restrict the amount of guns you can have. No, you can have 100 guns. I don't know what you're going to do with all those other than be a collector. But yeah, you can have a bunch of different guns, as many as you want. And so you can pass them out to all your friends. Everybody can have a gun. They don't think that way. Their thought process is if this is a problem, let's go ahead and solve it. The second part about that is also they're looking at saying, well, if you are related to someone who is restricted from a gun, and we think it's reasonable that, for example, this is a father-son combo, since your son is ineligible to get a gun because of some of the things that he's done, well, then you may be ineligible to get a gun as well. And so that one's a little tougher because your family member isn't, got flagged for some reason. You may also be ineligible to get a gun. So they're trying to put that two together. But regardless of what you think, whether it's right or wrong, the difference between what they do there and what they do here is that they sit back and they're looking at the situation and they're making an assessment of what changes do we need to make in order to protect people. That guns and the ability to go out here and shoot and play with guns is not more important than keeping people safe. And so they have a whole different type of approach, an approach that many people here in the United States wish that we had. Many of us, are because we've been trained in that thought process of being, hey, everybody needs to have a gun. We should be able to have multiple guns. We should be able to have all the guns we want. We're trained in that thought process because of the Second Amendment and a lot of other things that people have been saying. We would never really want to go that route. But immediately they have one mass shooting. And again, already have some of the strictest laws. And the next thing they're already looking to do more. And so their approach is different from what we do. And the question, usually is, should we be doing more? Should we be doing something different? Should we value lives a little more than we value guns? Because they've already gotten rid of the automatic, the semi-automatics, where we still wrestle with those issues all the time. They are already gotten rid of high capacity, high capacity cartridges or whatever that holds large amounts of bullets. We haven't gotten rid of that. They've already gotten rid of a lot of the modular things that you can do, so you can change a gun from just a regular gun into a automatic or semi-automatic. And so, their approach is, hey, we're going to value life over gun freedom, life over gun enthusiasts, life over, just going out here and just collecting and having guns. And so it's a different approach. And it's an approach that you have to wonder, like, should we be doing that here? Is that what we should be looking at here? Should we be valuing life a little bit differently here? Or valuing guns and gun rights a little bit differently here? But then here's the next part. And this is the part more so that I think hits on what's going on. This is Australia. The people who risk their lives, the stories that were going on, most of them were Australians, but foreign Australians. You had some people from Syria, some Syrians. The couple that I talked about that were in their 60s, they were from Syria. They're Syrians. And they lost their lives. The young gentleman who was called a hero, even the president here in the United States called him a hero. He's Muslim. And his father said, because his father said, I want everybody in the world to remember that this is my Muslim son. His name is Muhammad Faith Al-Alami. And so um, the thing about that is these are the people who we here in the United States have been calling names. The type of people that we've been calling names, the type of people that we've been calling terrorists, the type of people that we've been demonizing. Um, but when it all went down in Australia, the people who went out there and risked their lives to try to save others and sacrifice their lives or sacrifice their body were people from Syria, people who were Muslim, um, the people who we assume here for some crazy reason, we always assume they're terrorists. And those are the folk who went out here and they tried to make a difference. Um, and so as we sit here in the United States in our little weird situation of where we're trying to demonize people who are black and brown, demonize people who come from different countries, demonize people who immigrated here, demonize people who immigrated here without legal status, whatever we're doing, all the ways that we're talking about folk. We got to remember that these, people are people. And these people just in this other country, just dedicated and well, not dedicated, but sacrificed themselves to save others. We're being a neighbor to others. But yet these are people that we want to treat poorly here in the United States. And so I think how do we need to look at that? How do we, and this is the part, let me see what's going on with the Jewish community is saying that the problem is anti-Semitism. They feel that Australian government isn't doing and saying enough about anti-Semitism. Yeah, and that goes to the irony here. This was done by somebody who's supposed to be radicalized by the Islamic State. All right, that's what they said the father and son combo was. And this was done during a Hanukkah time or celebration. But yet the people who sacrificed their lives to save others, Muslim, Syrian. That's the part that we have to understand. That our obsession with hate, even when other people want to hate, at the end of the day, people, you got people who are out here, regardless of race, regardless of religion, who believe in protecting others, who believe in sacrifices for others. And so to try to just demonize folk and sit back here and do that, the facts don't back it up. So during the Jewish holiday, you had some people out here who were filled with hate, and you had Muslims running to stop them and save people's lives. Muslims out here sacrificing their lives to save others. Another comment. We must understand the motivation behind all of the shootings. People usually do not do mass shootings, except in the U.S., just because they feel like it. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's always background stories and reasons for people doing things. And I'll tell you that when it comes to Australia and what's going on down there, that's not our zone, and so we don't really know particularly what's going on with the politics and everything down there. Again, it is a big cry of anti-Semitism and things like that going on down there, just like it is here. But the reality is we need to remember to look at people. Remember to look at the fact that we have people, neighbors, we have individuals here, and everybody can't just be lumped into groups. And so, you wouldn't sit back here and think, all right, we got people out here who are mad at Jews, but they're going to be stopped by Muslims. And so before we go out here, we start continuously with our hate for immigrants, because those people are immigrants. The one man the one man, he was Muslim, Syrian. So what he did was he was an illegal immigrant in Australia. And then he was able to get his citizenship by joining the army. And then now he's a legal citizen, who's a Muslim, who came in there, illegally, joined the army, got a citizenship, and then when the time came to try to sacrifice, to try to be, a hero, and then help others, that's what he did. He ran out there, and so we're sitting back here and we're talking about people who are illegal, or we talk about people who are black and brown, especially people who are black and brown and illegal, or people who are black and brown and are looking for legal status. They're coming over here looking for asylum or whatever. And we have not just the government, but you have the government, you have plenty of people who are also spitting out the type of hate of where we're saying people don't, they don't belong here, they shouldn't be here, blah, 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 blah. Those people oftentimes understand loving one another more than we do and will sacrifice themselves for the greater good way before we will. And, I think that's something that we need to think about, especially when we're having these conversations. You got to think about who sacrificed themselves and who sacrificed their lives, because many of them sacrificed themselves to get here. It's a big sacrifice to get here to the United States in the first place. So that there are people of some type of character or some type of bravery, because it's not an easy trek to get here. And then when they get here, they care for the people that are here or care for the country that's here. And yet we want to demonize them. The one thing I thought was always weird is that you sit here and you hear stories about people who are being deported because they're here illegally. They got here when they were a kid. They've been here for 20, 30 years. And then we deport them because they're not a citizen. They've had a job, they pay taxes. Many of them gone to school, graduated from high school, graduated from post high school, college, all that kind of stuff. Can drive, do whatever. Been here for years, 30 years, 40 years. We decide we're going to just pick them up and toss them out the country because we're saying you're here illegally. But yet you'll have somebody who's 15 years old, ain't done nothing. Kid, somebody who's been here for 40 years, you got a 15-year-old kid. Which one is more American? Is it just the blood, or is it the work that you put in? Is it the blood, or the fact that you've been in society and you're doing all this for so long? I think the confusion is that we care here. We're in the United States. We're obsessed with your bloodline, or who you came from and things like that. But I think it's more important about what you do, about what you've put in, and I think we've lost that. That it was supposed to be the difference between the United States and all the other countries when it was established here. It was supposed to be anybody can come here and you don't have to be from royalty in order to go from the bottom to the top. But now we have that same type of weird warped reality where if you don't have the right name, blood, if you're not a citizen here and then you can't go from the bottom to the top where you don't belong. And so I think that's what we have to remember when we're sitting back looking at a situation like this, and we're looking at people who are heroes, people who sacrifice themselves. Another comment: it is obvious that the people who tried to stop the shootings value life, not just certain lives, but all lives. The problem is we have in society today is that there are persons who don't value all lives. Yeah, and I think that's a significant problem. It's always been a problem in the church because you hear people saying things like, the Bible only applies to other Christians. You look at the Jewish law and they say, well, Jewish law only applies to other Jews and how you're supposed to treat other Jews. And which means if you look at it like that, there's no way you can value life. If every time we look at the Bible and every time we look at, not to even take it to the Bible, or every time we look at stuff and we just talk about, other American citizens and we say, well, no, we value their lives. Well, that means you don't value life. You don't value others. You can't just value yours and not theirs. And I don't think that we as the church or Christians sometimes understand that. I don't think that you can't go that route and bring that back up. You have to value all lives. You can't value only Christian lives, only American lives, only lives that are like yours. You can't value only your people. because that's not it. That's not everybody. That's not all of creation. That's not, you know, that's the problem. And I think that's where we've gotten. We've gotten like real selfish and real into our own zone, and we don't even realize it. And so, it's weird when we sit back and we talk about, Americans, and we value our lives. And you can look at the government right now, for example, where they're bombing boats out in Venezuela. We talked about it last week. You don't value lives just because the people are Venezuelan, just because the people look different, talk different, come from a different place. Because if the same activity is done here, when you have a drug runner, they're accusing people of drugs running from Venezuela, you kill them, you blow them up, no questions asked. You have somebody here who does drugs, put them in jail, put them in rehab. So why do we value our lives, but we don't value theirs? Why can you have an opportunity to redeem yourself or, change here, but people in other countries don't? And so I think that's what we need to constantly ask ourselves. Are we treating others with the same way that we're treating ourselves? Are we loving our neighbors as we love ourselves? If you're a patriot, as they want to say, if you love the country and you love the United States, that means you need to love all the other countries as well, because they're the neighboring countries, whether it's, the neighboring countries of Canada and Mexico, whether it's Central America, South America, whether it's Europe, whether it's Africa, whether it's Australia, whether it's Asia. If you're gonna be a Christian about this thing, and we're gonna love our neighbors, you got to love everybody else. So you can't just be like, well, Americans, yeah, I love us. Yeah, but you got to love them too. And so I think that's where we get messed up. As Christians, even Jews, we have the responsibility and a mandate to take care of all of God's creation. We must value all lives. And again, that's the problem, because you can hear we all know it. It's a bunch of Christians out here who think that they only have to love other Christians. Like, that's what the Bible is talking about. It's only talking about other Christians. And so if you're not a Christian, none of this stuff applies. And that's what they think. And I think it's crazy. But that's the same, and you can see that in the ideology, because that's how they think when they're in their Christian nationalists, that it only applies to other Christian nationalists. So even if you are a Christian in another country, it don't matter. You got to be in this country and you got to be a Christian, and then that's when it applies. Or if you are in this country but you are of a different religion, it doesn't matter. And so we've gotten into this weird, sick reality of where you only have to apply, your morals and your Christian standards to the people that you deem worthy. And we know this because many of the illegal people that we've deemed to be illegal, many of the immigrants that come from South America, Central America, we know that many of them are Christians. And so it don't matter. They think that this only applies to other Christians. But since they're illegal, so now you got to be a Christian and you got to be an American. And so I think some of us we're really lost, and we got to make sure that we're not getting into that mindset too. Now all of us, I think it's a slippery slope, and it's real dangerous. It's that group mindset, that that mob kind of mentality, that we're just thinking about our own group, our own gang, our own people, and we don't care about anybody else. And so when it's us against them, it's real easy to dehumanize others, and it's real easy to treat others improperly when we get to that us against them mentality. And that's what's constantly going on here in the United States. As much as we talk about division, and we're normally talking about it between political parties, but no, it's when it's coming to division, it's we're humans and y'all are not. We're Christians and y'all are not. And so y'all don't get any of the values. We only apply those to one another. And I think that's awful. I think that's way off base. And I think that's one of the problems that we have. And so when we're talking about these different denominations, or I don't even know if they're denominations, when we talk about these different sects or groups that have splintered off from Christianity, Christian nationalists. I say, and most of y'all probably disagree, evangelicals, some of the Southern Baptist groups out here who have decided that, it's us and them. I think these groups are teaching some stuff that's just not true, and they're teaching a separation, and they're teaching hate. It's back to that they think that they're this elect, the elect group, that special group, and everybody else is just that. And so it's causing hate, it's causing division, and it's giving people an excuse and a reason to turn their backs on others. So that's it. I mean, just as a reminder, when you sit back and you look at it, when you sit back and we look at Australia and we look at what happened, people came out here to show some hate towards Jews during Hanukkah, and the people who came in to be heroes, Muslims, immigrants, who came in and sacrificed themselves. All right, well, that's it. Kind of went right through it. Thank everybody for the comments. That was good. I think that's something that we really need to think about. I really do. I think we really need to think about how society has set this thing up for us to be able to ignore different people, find excuses and reasons to ignore different people. All right. Well, as a reminder, I'll go back through on Thursday Thirst, weekly Bible study, 7:00, Facebook, YouTube, Eastern Standard Time. Please join us for that. On Sundays at 10:00 Eastern Standard Time as well, Facebook, YouTube, and in person, if you are in the area, we have worship service. And then 7 on Tuesdays, Eastern Standard Time, from 7 to 7:45, we have prayer. And so please pray with us sometime between that time. And of course, at 8:00 every week, we have Impact 2025. Please feel free to join us. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for everybody who's joined us, and please join us again. Have a good one.
Sometimes you'll wonder if you will be all you can be, and doubt can climb